Welcome back, folks, to the Character Corner podcast. This is your host, Chris, and Deepam here. And we are here to do what we always do in these shows. We're here to talk about some of our favorite comic book characters and give us background history on them. And we have... I don't even know if we didn't look for reviews. I know we've had a lot of people coming into it. You're going to take a real quick look at iTunes reviews real quick. But I want to thank everybody who's a new listener. I know we've been getting some people on Twitter and Facebook and telling us they love the show. Listen, we really appreciate everyone who likes doing these shows. Listen to these shows because we love doing these shows. Like if everything else happens, like if something like with me and Deep, I would probably still be doing Character Corner shows because I love doing this shit. One, I just love reading the history of some of these characters, and it's just always interesting having these discussions with you. And it just so happens that it's amazing to me that you all love hearing the two of us go back and forth with this and discuss these things. Like, honestly, if nobody was listening, we still probably do this.
It's true. But it's honestly very true.
It's just been fun. So for this episode, did you check to see? I think we have
2 new reviews.
All right, let's go ahead and we're going to read these reviews. Again, if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, we will read them on the next episode. So, Deepam, go ahead and read our reviews.
They've got to be 5 stars, or I won't read them. First one is from Valentine's Day. Joe LG says, it says perfect. I just love this show. The breakdown of the characters is expert level. The enthusiasm is contagious. The hosts are funny and super knowledgeable. Keep up the greatness. Thank you very much for leaving the review. And this one is from DR5S3, the Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel. I assume the rest of his character corners got cut off. This is long, so sorry. Hey guys, love the deep dive into the character history of Captain Marvel before the movie. I had no idea how fascinating the story was. It really made the movie so much better, wondering what story they were going to tell. I also have to complain that you cost me some money when buying comics on Carol and Monica. Shout out to the movie reviews and the Palms rewatching of the movies. The content means a lot because I work late shifts, and it really keeps me up doing my job and getting me home. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the review. And thank you for the kind words, man. That's really, and like Chris said, we'd be doing this if we didn't get any feedback at all because we just love talking about this shit. But it's really nice to open the page and have that sitting there waiting on us.
Yeah, no, it means a lot. Like I said, it means a lot because we just do these because again we love doing them, and so to hear that people are listening to them and it really enjoy it just makes us want to do even more. So, so we have a special one for you today. This is gonna be the first of a 2.5-parter, I guess. We're doing Tony Stark and Iron Man, and say it's 2.5 parts because I started doing the first part of the research for this. I think we're going up to. I'm going to tell you the end first. We're going to get up to volume 2 of Iron Man, which I think is the Heroes. Is it Heroes Reborn slash?
I refuse.
We're gonna address it. We're not really gonna go into it because it's ridiculous.
Oh, the fuck we aren't. I'm going to have I don't know how much anger is left in me. It's been a very long day, but if I've got some, you'll hear about it.
So we're gonna get to that. If you like the Miracle Man rant we had with this, you're gonna enjoy that.
No, that's not that.
I think when I say enjoy it, I mean people hearing you rant about things that are ridiculous. But anyway, I don't want to give away the ending because we won't be able to listen to the whole thing. And then from there, the second part will be us going into more of the modern stuff. We'll definitely get the Fraction Run and things like that, and Civil War things, the Extremis Army. We're getting into all that stuff. The half episode, and this is something that I was going through. This is something we're going to start doing with some of these things when we just want to delve into something a little bit that's related to the character, but it maybe takes an entire episode. So we're going to do 30 minutes, and we're going to go through the Iron Man armors because that itself needs to have its own little discussion here because there's so many of them. So we might gloss over some of the armors. We're going to mention some of them. We'll go into more detail with them into that little mini episode that'll probably be recorded after Endgame comes out, and we'll talk about that kind of stuff there. So
can I be really real with you?
Yeah.
Even more than Hawkman, I think I'm looking forward to this one the least because it makes me more nervous about Tony and Endgame. And I don't want your theories, and don't send me why you think he's safe or why you think he's dead. I don't give a shit what you think. We'll all see it at the same time later this month. I'm just saying that to say this. This reread really kind of crystallizes, particularly, I guess, the second half of the podcast, we'll do it more, but it kind of crystallizes what a unique and weird character that Tony Stark is for the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, it's it's been interesting to me. So we're doing Anthony Edward Stark, Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, Don Heck, and Jack Kirby in March 1963. He's such an interesting character to me because, like, he's not the smartest character, still pretty smart. Not the richest, still pretty rich. But I put it this way: no, he's the volume shooter of the Marvel universe for me. Like, you're not going to outmatch his output because Tony's a guy that, like, you give Reed Richards a problem, he'll solve that problem. He'll solve a couple other, but he gets really focused on that one issue. Tony gets really focused on one issue, but he's also at the same time really focused on other issues, and this becomes more apparent when we do the second part of this podcast. You're like, wait,
Hickman got him. If there's one guy who wrote the fuck out of this guy, it's Jonathan Hickman.
Like, it's like, wait, why is Tony's in the Illuminati. Tony's also doing the Avengers machine. He's also doing this. He's actually doing the philanthropy stuff that we talk about Batman and Bruce Wayne doing all the time. I'm like, he's doing it all. He's actually doing it all well too. How the fuck?
And he's building more weapons to destroy planets.
Right. It's like, when does he have the time? It's like that is Tony Stark. He creates all this stuff. Like, he's the guy you give, like, Reed Richards is the guy you give one impossible problem to. Solve the impossible. And Reed is going to solve. Tony's the guy you say, listen, here's a semi-impossible problem that I need you to solve, but I also need you to solve these other 10 other problems. Well, not even that. He'll then solve the 10 other problems that you weren't even aware you were going to have. You're like,
the problems that came from the problem you asked them to solve. Like,
right.
Well, that's because of this.
Right.
And I think it's interesting. So I've been doing, as mentioned on the review, the Between Two Palms rewatch of the entire MCU. It's all in the UD Pod feed. There's an interview with Stan Lee in the 2-disc version of Iron Man. Did you get to catch it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So the quote is, I think I gave myself a dare. Like, this is why Iron Man, to me, as we go back and look at it, especially the timing. Remember, this is March 63 when they introduced Iron Man. Stan Lee said, I think I gave myself a dare. It was the height of the Cold War. The readers, the young readers, if there was one thing they hated, it was war. It was the military. So I got a hero who represented that to 100th degree. He was a weapons manufacturer, providing weapons to the army. He was rich. He was industrialist. I thought it would be fun to take the kind of character nobody would like, none of our readers would like, and shove him down their throats and make them like him. And he became very popular. Jerry Conway, in the same interview, says, here you have this character who is on the outside and vulnerable. I mean, just can't be touched, but inside is this wounded figure. Stan made it very much an in-your-face when, you know, his heart was broken, literally broken. There's a metaphor going on there, and I think that's what made the character interesting. He was an inventor, an adventurer, a multi-billionaire, a ladies' man, and last of all these, he was a nutcase. And it's so interesting to me to think about the time Tony Stark came to be. Like, before we get into all the character stuff and the character bits, the development of this character in that atmosphere with the audience. You know, you're right. This isn't one like, oh, Marvel's being tone deaf. Marvel, like, Stanley's like, watch this fucking trick.
They created him during the Vietnam War. He started off being an anti-communist, and then as the public's viewpoints on the Vietnam War and stuff changed, this goes back to what we were saying before about when we did our History of Comics thing with Marvel. Marvel adapts to the world outside your window, and so as the public's viewpoints on war and on these things changed, so did the evolution of Tony Stark change. And it's such an interesting thing to me because as I'm looking at Tony, right? And when you compare him you look over at DC and you have another billionaire playboy who becomes a hero and Batman. The difference between the two characters, and take the popularity aside, when I was going through all these things and reading all these issues of Iron Man, and we're going to pull heavily just from his solo titles here. We're getting some of the Avengers stuff, but like there's a lot of good stuff in his solo titles here. It goes back to something you're always bringing up whenever we talk about Batman. And it's the fact that for the longest time, and again, this has started to change more, but it's still kind of heavy on this. You know, Bruce Wayne never really mattered. It's always Bruce Wayne. When you get into Tony Stark, and as we'll get into this more when we talk about the issues and get into this, for the longest time, and as a matter of fact, throughout this entire podcast, you have to take one thing you have to understand about this, about Tony Stark and Iron Man here. The public thought those were two separate people. Iron Man was the bodyguard of Tony Stark. And the reason why that
Dumb
matters
cover story.
is what you find is when we go start going to this stuff, you'll find a lot of these enemies and a lot of these storylines. Iron Man is technically he's caught up in this. Like people are going after Iron Man because they're trying to get to Tony Stark, and they got to take out Iron Man first to get to Tony Stark. There are so many of these stories that are literally about somebody trying to take Stark International or Stark Enterprises or whatever Stark's fortune is from him, and they're like, but he's got that bodyguard, Iron Man. We got to get Iron Man out of the way so we can get to Tony Stark. Or they don't even care about Iron Man. They're like, we're just going to kidnap Tony Stark, and they do not like. It's the complete inverse of Batman, right? You never see somebody going after Batman. It's like, we got to go and get Bruce Wayne. But we got to take care of Batman because Batman's his bodyguard. None of that. And so what you get is so much of the character development for Iron Man is Tony Stark character development. So when you get to obvious things like, his alcoholism, his womanizing, which is honestly, that's a James Bond type quality he has to him, but it becomes a real fucking problem for him. Like all these things happen. You get these moments of Tony questioning, like with Bruce and Batman, you get Bruce saying, I'm going to retreat behind this mask, and maybe I can give up being Bruce Wayne. Tony's always asking, can I give up being Iron Man? He does not want to really be Iron Man, right? He's always like, there's several times, especially in the early years, he's trying to offload it onto somebody else, and a lot of times does. He tries to,
It's interesting because, like the Hulk, like you and I talk about the Hulk sometimes and how it's hard to do that as a movie because how do you do a movie where the titular character doesn't want to be there? And it was same thing similar with Iron Man because the entire time you're like, Tony's trying to, like you said, figure out how not to be Iron Man. But what I liked about this and about the Hulk, honestly, one day we'll do a Hulk. Everyone go read Immortal Hulk. Jesus Christ. Just, oh my God, Al Ewing's a psychopath. Is that here he eventually accepts it. So that I think it's really important we're doing this episode first, and that the people who, obviously people who are listening to this have some sort of colloquial knowledge of Iron Man. You guys are aware of the movies. But what you may not be aware of is why him saying at the end of the first movie, I am Iron Man, is such a big fucking deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He ran from that shit for a year. He pretended he had a robot bodyguard.
Yeah.
Like, only very few inside loop Avengers knew it was actually Tony. Mm-hmm. To the point when Rhodes eventually shows up in the suit, they're like, Tony, what the fuck? He's like, I'm not Tony. Like, it's not Tony in there. Like, what do you mean it's not Tony? Like, Cap and Wasp are like, Tony, cut the shit out.
Right. Like, we'll get to this, but Rhodes actually becomes an Avenger, a West Coast Avenger, because there's like they thought he was just Iron Man. It's like, oh, okay.
Thought he was Tony.
Yeah, thought he was Tony. All right, cool. Tony's like, they're buying this shit. They're actually it's working.
Keep it going.
Right, keep it
I'm
going.
gonna go pour a drink.
Right. No, it's got to be Tony now. So, but you're absolutely right. It's a big thing. Like I said, we're not even going to get to the issues where he finally comes out publicly for that, and that brings a whole nother set of issues, right? So, yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and how this character developed, and I wasn't prepared because it's been a while. I haven't really read early Iron Man stuff, and so this is kind of my first time going through some of this stuff, and I was unaware of how personal some of the stories were. Like it's like some of the stuff is gets to you. Like I just and again we'll get to this in a second in more detail. I just read the what was it, the beginning of the end, which is those 17 through 23 in the volume 1.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, first of all, I forgot. James Rhodes was not the first black man to take the armor.
True.
Eddie March, he wore the
really
armor. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of stuff that happened. And I'm reading this going like, man, I totally understand why. First of all, I'm like, I totally understand why Tony starts hitting the drink later on because fuck, he's been through a lot, All right, so let's dive into this so we can actually get into some of these storylines here. So let's start with we'll get into
the powers and abilities. Like it's just the armor, I guess. We'll cover that at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean the powers. I mean so powers. It's the baseline power of inventive genius.
Yeah, for this part of the podcast, he is not a metahuman.
He's not right.
Giant asterisk over that.
Yeah,
because there's some revelations that. So we're going to cover this chronologically in the comic books. As Marvel so often does, they mine their own history to tell the next story. So some of the things that we say in this podcast are going to have our more recently and well-read nerds say that's not true. I implore you, hold the fuck on for part 2.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to refer to him as Howard and Maria Stark's son.
Yes.
A lot of people right now are like, why wouldn't you call him that? And some other nerds are like, how the fuck dare you?
Yeah.
I'm asking you to trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process. We're going chronologically here. Things get weird. All right. So there's that part, the fact that he is, and his genius is again, we kind of mentioned this, we were talking about Reed, and his genius is in electrical and mechanical engineering. Tony is the guy. He's not the smartest, but he's the guy when somebody else in the Marvel Universe is building something, it's like, run that by Stark. Run it by him.
If you can imagine, he can build it. He's basically Forge without all the layers of Forge that make Forge problematic.
Right.
How about that?
And then there's the armor. So again, we're going to get into these in greater detail. We're going to mention some of these. We're going to get in greater detail when we do the individual one, because there's just some really cool things, and you see the evolution of Iron Man through these armors. General power set for them: strength, flight, the weapons, the repulsor rays, the unibeams, there's the specialty suits. I particularly enjoy the fact that everybody knows the Mark I suit, right? And I love that this literally the second issue that they have him. So the first issue he's in is Tales of Suspense 39. I think it's was it 40 is when they do the Mark II, which is the the Golden Avenger. 48. I'm sorry, 48, where they do the Golden Avenger suit. And then after that is the red and gold one that everybody is.
Okay, red and gold is 40. I apologize. Okay. Red and gold is 40. The gold is 40.
Yeah,
you're right.
The red and gold, the classic red and gold that we've seen. It was drawn by Kirby, but it's actually Steve Ditko's design. And I love design. Yeah, and I love that Steve Kirby was just like, it was way more streamlined, easier to draw. And I'm like, you see them make this decision on the fly. Like you see them go from this. It's very, very interesting seeing how they got these designs.
Also, I want to just do a quick shout out to the movies, because they didn't have to put the Mark I in the movie.
They didn't.
They really fucking didn't, Chris.
They didn't.
And it's so fulfilling. And the first thing you see in the Marvel Universe is him building the Mark I in that fucking cave.
Yeah. And let's go a little bit into that too. It's like, what happens is he's in Vietnam. He's developing weapons for U.S. government. I think he's showing them off, and he gets injured by a booby trap. He gets shrapnel. It's literally the story they tell you in the MCU. Gets injured with shrapnel.
The Iron Man one is disturbingly strict to the source material from the very beginning.
It really is. Gets shrapnel in his heart. He's helped by a Nobel Prize winning physicist, Ho Jensen. Helps him develop the Mark I, and he's helps him, and he escapes. But again, remember, he's telling people that it was his bodyguard, and he developed the armor, and the bodyguard whose secret identity he's not going to tell anybody. And that's how he goes forward. Now, I will say this, and I appreciate them sticking with this story for as long as they did, because we are not going to get to the point where Tony is admitting that he's Iron Man in this podcast. So we're covering a lot of issues. Like, I want to say this is starting in the 60s, 63.
Right.
It's like late 90s, early 2000s when he finally admits that he's Iron Man. And the reason why that's important is what Tony does is Tony carries around, and again, they did this in Iron Man 2, carries around a suitcase that contains the armor. And
people figure out, like, T-Bone, why do you love Iron Man 2? Like, the goddamn suitcase suit. It's a suitcase suit. And at that point, tell me anything.
Like, but even so, and just so you guys know, the suitcase, him carrying the suitcase with the armors in it, does not work like Iron Man 2. No, it's not like the suitcase becomes the armor. No, it's literally a briefcase that nobody else can open but him. That opens up, and he literally puts on the armor piece by piece, like he's putting on this like a regular suit. And I'm just like, how did we allow this to happen? I'm like, fuck it, we're doing it. And nobody, like, he literally, he disappears like Clark Kent does when Superman appears. Oh, wait, no, I was hiding under the table. Wait, Iron Man was here? Oh, well, that's why he's a good bodyguard. It's like, you guys fucking serious right now? You guys really doing this right now? That's how we're gonna do this. How we're gonna do this?
Reminds me of a certain Mr. Parker.
Right. You know, same thing. Which becomes an interesting thing, and we'll get into this, and we'll kind of go back to some of the other key characters. I was reading earlier in Volume 1. It actually is a really good story. I've seen people say it's one of the best Silver Age Iron Man stories. Issue 17. So, I can't remember when he gets his own exactly when he gets his own series. He eventually gets the Invincible Iron Man #1 of that solo series. 17
May 68. Sorry,
May 68. So it's not soon after, like 5 years after. And this is after he's joined the Avengers already.
Right.
But 17 to 23 is called the beginning and the end. And in that, the first two or three issues of that, what you find is early on, like a few issues before then, Tony, Iron Man's greatest enemy, the Mandarin, finds out that Tony is Iron Man, and in order to convince him otherwise, Tony employs LMDs. And so what happens is one of these LMDs during an attack, basically becomes sentient and is like, no, I want to be Tony Stark now, takes over as being Tony Stark and gets Tony. Like, people think that Tony's really the imposter and things like that. And it's just...
It's a super modern story about machines.
Yeah, it really is. And it's one of those things you're reading, you're going, like, damn, that's kind of fucked up. Like, right, nobody knows that Tony's Iron Man, and we're going into this story about LMDs. And it's just... I'm like, when did the story come out? Did we really just do this? And it leads to this whole thing about Tony trying to figure out, does he really want to be Iron Man? Does he really want to do this? And it's when Eddie March comes in and he trained Eddie March, who was a boxer who had I can't remember, was it brain aneurysm? Something was happening where he's like, he was close to dying if he takes another blow to the head, and he agreed to be Iron Man for Tony. And it was like, hey, listen, I'm going to die. I'm going to do it with a purpose. And he eventually gets beat up really bad, I think, by Crimson Dynamo. So yeah. Tony comes back, takes the suit, and pays for Eddie's like treatment and things like that. But it's like you're seeing Tony trying to struggle with his identity of trying to be him wanting to be Tony Stark and not wanting to be Iron Man. You know, and you have all this stuff going on. So it's just a really, really it's a really, really modern story here with this. So, all right, so let's go all the way back and cover some of these key characters here.
Perfect.
Again, characters you've known. Harold Happy Hogan,
especially in 2019,
right? Pepper Potts. Now, what you might not know is Happy and Pepper are actually technically the couple. There's a little love triangle thing there, but during these times,
it's a love triangle till Happy dies.
Yeah, until Happy dies, but they had kids though.
Did they?
Yeah, right. All right, they adopted kids.
There it is.
All right, so come on, Edwin Jarvis, Tales of Suspense 59, the butler, basically the Alfred.
So like really though, I'm glad they made Jarvis a program in the movies. It made sense. Jarvis raised this man from a child when his parents died in the car accident he's a grown-ass Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, Jarvis being Jarvis bugs me more than Alfred being Alfred. I can't explain why.
I think... I don't know. I don't think we...
Iron Man needs a support system. Iron Man needs a pit crew.
Well, I think because Jarvis isn't really... Jarvis makes more sense being the butler for the Avengers,
which he eventually becomes
than he does for Tony. It just does. I don't know what it is. And you know what it is? When it comes to Bruce and Batman, because Bruce doesn't matter, Alfred is basically our window into Bruce.
That's a good point.
And with Tony being Tony, Jarvis is literally just the butler. You know? Like, Tony matters here. You get so many stories start with Tony Stark doing this, Tony doing this, Tony doing this. And it's not like Tony running off to just so he can hide so Iron Man can come in. it's like, no, Tony is actually doing something. And here's an enemy who's coming after Tony Stark. Not Iron Man, but coming after Tony Stark. His friends and everything else around him, it's all about Tony. And I think that's what makes it weird for Jarvis, right? That's what makes it. And it's not to say that Jarvis doesn't have things to do with Tony. It's just that I just don't care because I care about Tony. With Bruce, like, Alfred is constantly there trying to remind you, because he's trying to remind Bruce himself that Bruce matters.
Right.
Bruce is so interested in becoming Batman, being Batman, and giving into that. Alfred is that lifeline back, going like, "Hey, Master Bruce. Like, it goes back to one of those. I think it was the Batman issue where the Father's Day thing, where it's Father's Day and Alfred has to go out and save Bruce and do this stuff, and you're just like, and it turns out it's Father's Day, and Bruce decides to take care of Alfred that day. Like, you're like, oh yeah, that matters. Like, I can't see that with Tony and Jarvis. I just can't.
Right.
I don't care. So we'll get into him later on. But obviously, James Rhodey, who also becomes Iron Man at some point. We're gonna get to him later on in Iron Man 118. It's a little bit ways away. We have Bethany Cabe, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. I believe they were both also introduced in Iron Man comics, right?
It's true.
Yeah,
they both
as enemies.
Start off as villains in the Iron Man comics.
Yes, villains in the Iron Man comics. Some other enemies here. We got Spy Master, Whiplash, Titanium Man, and Crimson Dynamo.
A theme of these villains that's tied into the movies is a lot of the, like I said, I always tout that great power with great responsibility is the large uniting factor in all the Marvel movies. But these characters were born out of Tony's technology getting out.
Born out of that, and again, a lot of it, especially when you get to Titanium Man and Crimson Dynamo, you get communism.
Exactly. The communist answer to the capitalist Iron Man.
And Cold War. All that stuff is there. We're going to get into them later on, but Justin Hammer and Obadiah Stane, these are when you get into like your corporate villains who are, again, aim more at Tony, than Iron Man. And to devastating effects. Very devastating. You have the Mandarin, who I know there's been a lot of talk about this character, and again, they drew Asian characters really poorly.
So we visited this on Between Two Palms, talking about Doctor Strange and how kind of you and I talked about before, how with the character of the Asian one, they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't, because yes, they took away a spot for an Asian person, but also like, you don't want an Asian person playing that character. Yeah. Same thing with the Mandarin. Ben Kingsley, motherfucker, no. Well, I'll tell you what we're not going to do. You might get mad we're not even an Asian character. You're really not going to get mad that we pointed out some fucking racist-ass trope to be the Mandarin.
Yeah. And it's weird.
Bad. Like, the Mandarin's bad.
And it's bad, and I think that they've tried to clean it up as best as possible, but the origin of the character...
They did a good job, but, like, it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I also kind of say he's almost like evil Hal Jordan because of his origin, comes across an alien ship, gains... So much. He literally, he gains...
I've never made that connection. I'm 33 years old.
He gains... so much right now. He gains not a power ring. He gains 10 power rings, nigga. How do you not make the connection? I started going through it. I was like,
so mad at you right now, Chris.
He is evil Hal Jordan. I just...
Like, now all I can see is the Mandarin on the cover of that Emerald Twilight issue with all the rings on his finger.
It's just... He's got 10 rings.
I hate you so much. You ruined the Mandarin for me.
More than the racial stereotype?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, honestly, they did a good job of cleaning him up in that recent series.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read it yet. They did a really good job of trying to fix that. But yeah, no, not even like vintage Mandarin where I kind of went and like read it anyway. That's all turned into comic-y Hal Jordan jokes. Like, thank you for
that. He has, again, the 10 rings. He got Ice Blast, Black Light, let's see, the Intensifier.
Which isn't a power, by the way. That's like, are there stains in my hotel room? It's a black light. That's not a power.
Disintegration Beam.
That's a power.
Electro Blast, Vortex Beam, Flame Blast, Impact Beam. It's just like they basically just like
they refined them as the stories got more evolved and mature. But at first you're like, a lot of those are the same shit, my dude.
Right.
Like, you like, and Black Light Beam isn't What?
We'll get one of those.
Power too.
Right. We'll get one of the. Like I said, I kind of avoid. I don't want to get too much in some of these, especially the early stories, because they are very stereotypical. I do want to talk when we get to it. The Dragon Seed saga, again, stereotypical, but at least they start trying. I think that's where you start seeing them try to play with the origin, and add.
It's and also Invincible Iron Man annual #1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
lied a lot about about his actual origin.
Exactly. So it's like they started trying, and again, that's something we got to give. I give comics credit for, and not just Marvel. There's a lot of self-correcting. Hey, listen.
Yeah, there has to be,
and there has to be. And here's again going back to, and we're gonna be sprinkling. Normally we do other versions at the end of the episodes, but I think we just because of what Robert Downey Jr. has done with the character, we have to talk about this throughout the thing. I think it's a credit that the character's gotten so popular, and then you really never really used his #1 villain. The greatest villain of Iron Man was the Mandarin, and they were able to do 3 movies and make Tony Stark and Iron Man the centerpiece of the MCU, and never really have his main villain there on screen. Like, testament to what they did. That's incredible.
They've done a good job of lampshade of kind of hinting at him, because I know that the 10 Rings is a thing in both Iron Man 1 and 3. I think it's mentioned again. Oh, it's gonna bug me. It's mentioned on one of the television shows.
Yeah, and remember they also did the little one shot.
Yep. So with the Mandarin in jail.
Right. So they did all that. So So again, kind of going back into this. So we kind of they did some of the enemies, and we'll get into more of these as we go through. Like I said, we're gonna focus mainly on. I can't remember when they started the Avengers. Iron Man was the leader, wasn't he? Yeah, he becomes leader of the Avengers.
Right.
We're gonna kind of go to some of the stuff we've kind of mentioned before. Issue 55 is the first appearance of Thanos, which I knew this, and it just hit me after reading this again. I don't know why it just hit me how important it was then in Infinity War, where you have Thanos going, basically knowing Stark's name and knowing who Stark is. And then it goes back to me, it's like, well, technically his first appearance is in an Iron Man comic, and that's the first time we meet him. That actually, in MCU speak, it makes sense, but even here, it feels like a throwback to the comics. You're like, well, his first appearance was with Iron Man and Tony Stark, so that's a good nod.
It's a great nod. It's one of those things that I think honestly is a happy accident after the fact. I don't think they could have planned that.
No, absolutely not.
But I think honestly, when they started their universe with Iron Man, them putting Thanos, because you and I talk about this, the first movies, the first Special Phase 1, that's Iron Man's series.
Mm-hmm.
Avengers is the end of that character arc where he sacrifices himself to try to save the world. The idea that would be the moment when he connects with Thanos, and Thanos learns his name is a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Man, these movies.
Yeah, so good. So again, we're gonna. Do you have anything else you want to jump to before we jump into Demon in a Bottle?
That's why we're all here, right?
Yeah, that's the story. Whenever you talk about Iron Man, I remember when people talked about the movie, everybody was like, "We're gonna do Demon in the Bottle." I remember I think it was it 2 or whatever he was drinking, or even on the plane.
They kind of flirt with it in 2 and 1.
Yeah, every time he drinks, people think about, oh, we're going to do Demon in a Bottle, Demon in a Bottle. First of all, I do want to say this. Well, Demon in a Bottle breaks down Tony. I got to say, what Denny O'Neil does with that shit is way more devastating. Just throwing it out there right now. Like, Denny O'Neil really breaks Iron Man. But for those who don't know or really new to this stuff, Demon in a Bottle, that's a storyline where we get the realization that Tony Stark is an alcoholic. And again, this is I don't have the exact date on this, but this is probably around this is are we entering into
It was issues 120 through 128 in 1979.
So we're entering in this is where kind of we're right before, I guess, the Bronze Age is starting. But this is that age of like the hard traveling heroes, and we'll bring this up again when we talk about Denny O'Neil starts writing for Iron Man. But like we're getting to this part where we're starting to get these heroes, and we again go back and listen to our History of Comics episode. We start talking about how This is where they really started kind of breaking down and getting characters having real life problems. I went back and read this 9-10 issues, and the subtle way in which they start breaking down Tony with the alcohol and him realizing and just breaking down Tony to period, it's actually done really well.
Mm-hmm.
It starts.
The ending's fucked up, but it starts off really well.
Yeah, the ending's fucked up, but like it starts off with him having, you see him having drinks, and you're just like, oh, okay, like it opens up. The issue 20 opens up with him on the plane asking for another martini, and the steward is like, well, you kind of had 4, but you're okay, all right, and it is going on. There's another one where he just had a drink and something happened, so he puts a suit on. And he's kind of a little tipsy, but like he's like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have the extra martini. Matter of fact, it's just episode. Namor ends up throwing a tank, and it hits the plane that Tony's on after he had that martini. So to put the suit on, he's like, oh man, I'm a little tipsy, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? Over this 10 issues, what you get is what you find out. This is the first appearance of Justin Hammer, is in 120. Justin Hammer is another weapons dealer. A weapons manufacturer, and he wants
professional rival, if you will.
Yeah, professional rival, and he wants to discredit Stark International so that he can win. He basically lost the contract to Stark, and so he's trying to discredit Stark by going after Stark's bodyguard. Again, he doesn't know that Tony Stark and Iron Man are one and the same, but he's like, I'm gonna try to. They figured out a way to kind of get through Tony's defenses to affect the Iron Man suit. So it starts off with something simple, like we'll cut off his boosters when he really needs it, or when he's fighting Namor and he's underwater and he has the plexiglass comes over his eyes and the mouth so he doesn't drown. We'll send a signal so that all of a sudden that comes up. And as they're going through all these things, and as they're going through it, like Tony's like struggling again. He's drinking, but also he's not sleeping. It kind of reminded me a little bit of what Bane was doing with Nightfall.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that, where it's like there's all these things piling up. Like Tony's not sleeping. He has stuff to do for his business. He has stuff to do for being a hero.
Shield's buying a piece of Stark.
Yeah.
Because his business rival, he figures out that a lot of his rivals are actually working for Justin Hammer.
Yeah. He's got
culminates with the armor getting, like you said, taken over.
Yeah. Like the big thing is on his mind is Shield trying to buy a controlling interest in Stark International. He's like, whoa, like if I don't know. And he asked Nick Fury, and Fury's basically like, yeah, well, you won't make weapons for us or exclusive to us. So if we have control of your company, then we can do whatever the hell we have access to all your stuff. And he's like, he's really worried about that. So he has all these things happening to him, and one of the things that culminates with is you find what Justin Hammer's Endgame is. I can't remember what nation it was, but their ambassador or their PM or something like that won a photo op with Iron Man. And what Justin Hammer does is while they're having the photo op, he sends a signal, and Iron Man's repulsor rays kill the guy, kill him from the world. Again, discrediting Iron Man, black mark on Tony Stark, and allowing Justin Hammer to kind of move in and earn this contract. And what you have is Tony then trying to go out and clear his name and Iron Man's name without using his armor. And he does it with one of his best friends, James Rhodey, because Rhodes shows up a few issues before this in like 18. And Rhodes' background is basically when Tony escaped with the Iron Man 1 armor in Vietnam, one of the soldiers that he also escaped with and that he met up with was James Rhodes. And they've been friends ever since.
He brings Rhodes on as a pilot and becomes, like you said, his best friend. But the entire all this is happening, Tony, it's almost a background thing. Tony just keeps drinking.
Yeah, it hits the fan, but you don't you barely notice it because you have this other big story going on. But like you said, it's always in the background. He's always drinking, and then he cracks. And it gets dark. Like you have that I can't remember what issue it is. The issue everybody sees with Tony sitting in front of the mirror and part of the armor with the unshaven face and the bottle in front of him.
It's 128. It's issue 128.
Yeah, 128. And it kind of goes out with a whimper because he beats it at the end. Like Bethany Cabe comes in, who again, the women that come in and out of Tony's life is ridiculous. Like you bring a woman in, it's worse than James Bond. Tony meets a woman, and next thing you know, they're in bed. It's like James T. Kirk and James Bond have nothing on Tony Stark. I'm sorry. It's not even fucking close.
Let the record show.
It's not even fucking close. All right? It's like, it's ridiculous. He yells at Jarvis, and Jarvis quits. All this stuff happens. But the end kind of comes, and they're just like, we're going to help you beat it. And Tony beats it and stops drinking, and everything's happy and fun. Like, Tony Stark beat alcoholism. So it's like, they were going somewhere with it, right? And they kind of just, I guess they're like, well, he can't really be an alcoholic. We can't keep this going, can we? And it kind of just stops, right? They basically do this, like, and it's almost like he beats it in a weekend, which is also kind of weird. It's like, it was like this one of this, it's like a montage of Tony and them helping him get over alcohol sickness and not be an alcoholic, right? And before all that, he finds out that Justin Hammer is behind all this stuff. He clears Iron Man's name. Justin Hammer escapes. But when Jarvis quit, I think one of his family members was sick. He sold the last his 2 shares of Stark International. So that's another thing that kind of sent Tony over the edge of all this culminating into him really coming out as being an alcoholic. But like I said, it ends kind of in a whimper. But hold that thought, because we're definitely going to come back to it.
Yes, we the fuck are. Because you're right. It does kind of wrap up like, and then Tony beat alcoholism in the weekend. Like it's one issue. Like so the arc is referred to colloquially as the Demon in the Bottle storyline. The only issue that's called that is the 128.
Yeah, it's just the one issue.
And in the span of one issue, not a supersized issue, not a doubles issue, not an anniversary issue, he reconciles what's happened. He decides to get better, and he fixes everything. And I would have a bigger problem with it if Denny O'Neil didn't exist.
Yeah. So before we get into Denny O'Neil, I just want to bring up, and we mentioned it before, we'll do it on the Doom Quest. Like,
yeah.
Come on, go listen to our Doom episode. But Tony Stark and Dr. Doom and medieval times.
One of them willing to embrace magic, one of them being Anthony Edward Stark. I'm just gonna, if you haven't listened to our Doom episode, I invite you to just take some time, go listen to that episode.
It definitely is one of my favorites.
We do a deep dive on Doom Quest and kind of explain why Tony's been out of his element.
A little bit out of his element, but it also brings up that thing of like, look, I love Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is always going to be a Fantastic Four villain, but Doom and Iron Man and Doom as a Iron Man villain is a very, very intriguing and very, very interesting.
It's compelling as hell.
It's compelling.
It's even by saying it, you're like, you're not on Reed's level too.
Right. It's such a compelling story because it then goes into like what Dan Slott did with Infamous Iron Man, which we'll cover Infamous Iron Man a little bit because obviously when we did the Doom episode, Infamous Iron Man never happened. So we'll revisit this and we'll revisit Doom Quest when we do the second part of this, and we kind of touch on like other versions of Iron Man, and we do Infamous Iron Man. But it's such an intriguing thing because, again, you're right. It's like Doom has armor, but Doom embraces magic. Tony Stark doesn't believe in magic. And so you have this technology versus faith and magic and stuff like that. And it's a very, very intriguing story. And this is a fun story, all right? Dr. Doom and Iron Man in medieval times with King Arthur and Morgan Le Fay. Come on, guys.
Morgan Le Fay.
Come on, guys. How are you gonna turn that shit down?
Let's stop dancing. Let's get to the real nitty and the gritty.
So again, if you were like, oh, Demon in the Bottle, you need to go read the Denny O'Neil run of Iron Man, which I believe goes from 160 to 200. So I think he wrote like 4. It might go more than 200.
40 issues.
40 issue run. All right. Now, if you're like, hey, I've heard that name, Denny O'Neil, before. Didn't he write Batman? Yes, he did. And he also wrote a thing called the Hard Traveling Heroes run. With Green
I
Arrow.
believe that's what's referred to colloquially, yes.
Yes. If you read, if you've heard us talk about this Green Arrow, Green Lantern run, you know they did some. They went there. I mean, these are the run that I also believe is also included Speedy, literally injecting speed on a cover of issue. So when you bring this man, and Denny O'Neil is also the guy I believe also kind of got Batman back to a little bit of some of his darker roots here.
So for those of you who don't know who Denny O'Neil is, I guess just kind of his important comics. Like you said, a lot of Batman and Robin. Wrote some Flash in the 70s. This guy has been everywhere, man. And helped introduce John Stewart, the Green Lantern. Like it's been a lot of places. And I think that it's important. Like you said, we touched on some of it, but go read more about Denny O'Neil. Like you said, the Speedy story. The O'Neil quote, it says, I went from total obscurity to seeing my name in the New York Times and invited to talk shows. So no means an unmixed blessing. That messed my head up pretty thoroughly for a few years. He said that like his success caused him to destroy any relationship with anything that wasn't a typewriter. And it's interesting because like you watch kind of where like he ends up writing the 81 annual issues of the Punisher. Mm-hmm. Like there's no hope in he introduced, I think, did he? I may be wrong here. I thought he introduced Tim Drake. Only Place in Dying, but maybe wrong here. I remember my brain will be mixing things up. But the bottom line is, Denny O'Neil's a monster. Denny O'Neil will come into your character and wreck your character's shit, and he did that for Iron Man.
I mean, because his whole thing was basically, if you're going to, if you have a superhero and you have a man like Tony Stark who has all this pressure on him, and he was an alcoholic, and again, he's always around alcohol because he's always going to these functions. That's one thing that
these little moments where he's like, don't want to drink.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to drink. I'll just have a seltzer water. It's like, yeah, but all that pressure he's under, you tell me he's not going to fall off the wagon? And Denny O'Neil's like, yeah, of course he did. Of course he's going to do that. And just to give you the end of what this happens with the story, it gets so bad, Tony becomes homeless, basically. Tony becomes a bum. Like, he takes everything from Tony.
Obadiah Stane takes it all.
So we create this ruthless villain, Obadiah Stane, who believes that Tony, I think Tony's father, either Tony or Tony's father, stole the designs I think Tony stole the designs of the Iron Man suit from his father. Or something along that line. And it's become very personal. Now, the other thing, too, you got to understand, Obadiah Stane's father, this is a hardcore family, died while playing Russian roulette. All right? It's not a fucking family.
It's so over the top.
It's so over the fucking top. All right. All right. Starts manipulating Tony, right? Gets him thinking that he's beating alcoholism and can start having little drinks here and there. And he brings in the chessman, and he's basically playing Tony like chess. Put this move here, put this piece here, put this here, to basically have it so that Stark International is going to fall right into his hand. And it worked.
He wins.
You know? It's this is where you get like Tony is so sauced up at one point. I can't remember who they're fighting, but Rhodey has to suit up as Iron Man. Mm-hmm. That's when you get Rhodey becoming Iron Man. Because Tony can't. He literally passes out drunk.
Yeah.
And Rhodey has to put the suit on. But I was saying takes over Stark International.
Yep.
Tony loses all of his fortune. Like, it's He's literally a bum.
This is the lot. When you think of Demon in the Bottle, you talk about the name. This is what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is what you think of. You don't think of actual Demon in the Bottle.
The end of 128, he's got it beat. It's over. It's literally, and there's little stuff in there, but it's literally beat. He beats alcoholism. And Daniel O'Neill said it's not that fucking easy. And what he does is he takes that seed of alcoholism placed in the original storyline, he expands it, and he says, this is the model for a Tony Stark villain, someone who challenges him both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that's what Stain did.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part about the Tony Stark story is when he falls down, he takes other people with him. Like, Rhodey gets the suit. Yeah, he's Iron Man. The suit's not calibrated for Rhodey. It's driving him fucking crazy.
Yep.
There's fallout. And this is it. Power and responsibility, once again.
Mm-hmm.
Tony abdicated the mantle of Iron Man, and it almost killed his best friend. He ended up putting the suit back on himself to bring Rhodes down.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it ends the same way Iron Man 1 does, with Stark and Stain facing off in a larger version of Stark's own original suit. But in this time, it's not a movie that ends with Pepper Potts hitting a button and a large blue hole being let in the sky. No, it ends with Obadiah Stane blowing his own fucking brains out.
Yeah, Obadiah Stane creates the suit, the Ironmonger suit. And that's the thing that got me. So, and this happens in issue 200, right? So there's 40 issues of this, right? So I can't recall exactly how many issues Rhodey is Iron Man in here, but it's a significant piece. Again, in between all this that happens is the West Coast Avengers, and Rhodey's that's Rhodey in that suit during that time, all right? And Stark is, again, you're doing this with a black man as Iron Man, which again goes back to that Nick Spencer run of Cap with the funeral of Rhodey. They're talking about how he was Iron Man. This is not Black Iron Man. This wasn't people going, oh look, that's War Machine. War Machine armor is still like 80 issues away. All right, this is Rhodey is in the red and gold. He is Iron Man. People address him as Iron Man because again, at this point, remember, nobody knows who the man in the suit is. It's that Bane. I know you don't like these movies, but it's the Bane line. Nobody cares about the man in the mask. Like nobody cares about the man in the suit. Nobody cares who's under that armor. It's you're in the armor. You're Iron Man. If Rhodey's in the suit and then Tony gets in the suit, it's like, oh wait, there's two of them now. And you can
why you Matt Damon,
and you can explain it away, going, oh well, I guess Tony Stark has multiple bodyguards. And this is also the thing that happens too. If Tony does something in the Iron Man suit that's irreparable, and it's like, wait, you killed somebody, you did this. There's always the excuse of, oh, I fired that bodyguard. This is a new bodyguard with a new suit. Ta-da! Sorry, you were breaking up. What'd you say?
I'll tell you. Now that guy got fired. You saw him kill that guy, right? You know why I fired him.
Yeah, that guy was crazy. That guy had to go.
That guy was nuts.
Whoa. Here's a new Iron Man here, guys. Iron Man 3. So going back to this fight between Ironmonger, Stain, and Tony, this is also, again, we haven't mentioned a lot of the different suits. This comes in, you've heard of this suit, this will come into play later. Silver Centurion suit. It's the one where it's no longer the red and gold. It's the red and silver suit. That's this is Stark basically creating a new suit that's more powerful. Because he needed something that's going to take down Stain. But again, even in this battle, Stain literally takes his repulsor to his head and kills himself in front of Tony versus letting himself technically live. Like, it's brutal, guys. Like, Denny O'Neil did not come to play with you, motherfucker.
At all. For even a little bit.
Yeah. I highly recommend going through and reading this. And again, when you think of Demon in the Bottle, pick up the run from 160 to 200 so you can see how this whole entire thing plays out. Because, I mean, Stain puts Tony through. Puts him through it.
100%.
All right, so we're moving on into the next thing here. The next big thing, again, we have the West Coast Avengers. We have Rhodey. We did that with before issue 200. After 200, about 15 issues in, we get 215. You get Armor Wars #1. Armor Wars 1. I'm not gonna say part 1 because it's not part 1 because Armor Wars 2 does not relate to this. At all. So Tony becomes convinced because during this time, and I believe this is during the Justin Hammer run, during the first Demon in the Bottle. There was a character called Spymaster, and Spymaster did find out that Tony was Iron Man, but he didn't sell that secret. But what he did do was start selling Stark secrets between that and Stain. Tony's design started getting out in the public. Other people
Real
started
public.
Right. Different government agents, villains, all the people were using some variations of Tony's design, and Tony was not happy about that. And so what you get is Stark Wars, which was really called Stark Wars, but it originally became known as Armor Wars. Tony, along with his best friend, because Rhodey is ride or die, decide they're going to take on the fucking world and take down any armored villain or hero.
Yeah.
Whether they have a design or not, which leads to some shit. And it becomes known as Armor Wars. What you realize?
How bad do you want your shit back?
Huh? Yeah, I'll bet you.
How bad do you want your shit back?
Here's the thing, and I think this goes back to us also realizing that Tony Stark matters. At this point, Tony has. If we've gotten to this point, we're at. I don't think 215 actually starts the actual Armor Wars, but it's kind of the storylines leading up to it. At this point, you have over 200 issues of a very traumatized man, smart man, a man who almost died in Vietnam, who for the longest time had shrapnel that was going to his heart. Like that gets taken care of early on, but he develops something that so that he basically gets an artificial heart. During that beginning of the end run, he eventually gets an artificial heart put in because he almost dies when he fights his LMD. So the shrapnel thing is not an issue anymore. But he's had all this trauma going on. He's had issues with alcoholism. He can't keep a relationship for to save his fucking life. This is a man who needs therapy. And so he gets what seems like a noble idea of how many of my designs, and I think this is another thing that really kind of defines Tony Stark, him taking responsibility for things that sometimes aren't his fault. How many of my designs are getting people killed? It's like, but those designs were stolen. It's not your fault. You didn't make these suits. You didn't give them to these supervillains. But Tony takes it personally to the point of obsession, to the point of Tony kind of becomes a villain here.
He becomes an asshole. I'm not willing to say villain. He does an asshole.
I mean, I can't remember who was the
Not heroic.
You said what else?
Some of this is not heroic.
I mean, he takes out one of the heroes who had, I can't remember the one it is. Who is it? It is god damn it.
Hartman, the Mandroids?
Not the Mandroids. Stingray. He takes out Stingray.
Yep.
And then finds out, it was like, oh, he's not even using my design. He technically kind of sort of kills Titanium Man over in
It's not great.
over in the Soviet Union. Like he becomes
It's not great.
Like he takes out the Mandroids and almost this becomes the seed of his disagreement with Tony, who again, Tony's another one. I mean, Steve Rogers, another one of his close friends. He takes down Steve Rogers to the point of the way he takes down Steve is he knows there's a one of the Mandroids were basically men in power suits, and one of the guys is injured, and so Tony basically gives Steve a choice of you either save that man and the man's going to die, but you're going to save him, and of course Steve does, and so Tony then uses that
Because he's
distraction.
Steve.
not calling him a villain here is kind of pushing it, guys. I'm just saying.
I'll push that.
I'm just saying. Tony is not the good guy here. Okay, maybe we don't call him a villain.
Not the good. He's not good. I never said he was good.
All right. And so the U.S. government decides to create an even bigger problem and creates this commissions a suit and a quote unquote hero called Firepower, piloted by Jack Taggart, black man, by the way, another black man. And hey, black people got some shine in Iron Man comics. And Tony cannot take down Firepower. And so in order to do this, in order to kind of and he's given a choice because he knows that he's trying to escape in a helicopter with Rhodey. And he was like, if Firepower's going to take down this helicopter, and you'll be considered acceptable collateral damage. So they fake the death of Iron Man and putting blood packs in it and blowing it up, and then creates a new suit, and then goes, oh yeah, that other Iron Man, that guy was out of his mind, taking all these.
That guy was nuts.
Because the only reason why this works is early on in Armor Wars, Tony, quote unquote, fires Iron Man, and I'm like, but Tony, you are Iron Man.
Chris, don't ask all these questions. He's fired. That's all you need to know. He's fired.
In issue 248, Tony is severely injured by a former lover because, again, this is just bound to happen.
Law of averages. He was due.
Yeah. Shot, spine kind of severed, losing control of his legs. He has a chip installed to kind of allow him to walk again, but that chip is compromised by the Mars twins and Kirsten DeWitt. DeWitt is actually the guy who thought that his designs were stolen. His father's designs were stolen by Tony. And again, this is an interesting thing because and this becomes it's leading up to Armor Wars 2. But it's because of an interesting thing where what Justin Hammer did in Demon in the Bottle was trying to take control of the Iron Man suit. In this, again, going back to Tony Stark mattered almost more than Iron Man, they're actually trying to control Tony.
Right.
And they put this chip in.
Tony's the weakness, not the suit.
Right. Not only that, but Tony's the power. Tony Stark, if you control Tony Stark and control his wealth and control his empire, you control everything. You control Iron Man, it's like, nigga, who cares? It's just a dude in a suit. The real power is Tony Stark. And so that leaves in the Armor Wars 2, which has absolutely nothing to do with Armor Wars.
Damn thing.
Armor Wars 1. I don't even know why it's called Armor Wars 2. Because really what they're trying to do is control Tony Stark. And when I say control Stark, I mean, literally they have a giant mechanism they spent billions of dollars on that looks like an outline of a human body. And they have different people in different sections of the body to control parts of Tony. And the only way for Tony to maintain control of his body is to be in one of his armors. Anytime he takes the armor off, like at one point he takes Rhodey is helping him and he takes the arm off and his arm goes all crazy because they're like, oh, we have control of the arm, and he basically strikes and tries to choke Rhodey. So it's a very interesting thing where Tony's literally trapped inside the suit that he's trying to create.
Right.
You know? And so I don't consider that Armor Wars. But yeah. In the background of the story is a story with the Mandarin that kind of leads in the Dragon Seed saga, which is the Mandarin kind of gaining control of Fing Fang Foom and finding out that adding more lore to the alien race that the Ten Rings belong to. Basically, they were a dragon alien race, and that this dragon race have lived among us this entire time, and their captain is trying to gain those rings back, and there's a whole story here. John Byrne writes a story in 270.
It's nice because they're mining their past to tell the next stories. They don't say,
Yeah.
"Oh, here's some dragons out of nowhere." They're like, "We never explain where these fucking rings came from."
And you go back and you're like, well, they did say they were alien, and they come over that, and they kind of explain it away that the Mandarin doesn't even know why he has a ring, doesn't know enough himself, and so they do a good job of kind of mining that there. So, and Tony's also comes to China to try to, again, it's another one of those things where he falls in love with a woman he just met. He goes to China to.
He loves art, Chris.
He does he. He he goes to China to get some help on fixing this chip and removing the chip because he has to wear this false skin to allow him to. It's this whole big thing.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, it's very very. Just understand that this all comes out of Armored War 2. Let's see. I'm trying to see what else we got here. We have the birth of the War Machine armor.
Yep, which is technically yes, the Variable Threat Response Battle Suit.
Yes. Rhodey takes over the War Machine armor later on after Tony fakes his own death and puts himself in cryo because, again, this whole thing with the chip and him being shot, he's trying to find a way to handle. And Tony does the thing he knows best is he thinks he's helping his friends by taking himself off the board. Rhodey is not happy about that. But 292 is basically where he steps out of the shadows of Tony, and becomes War Machine for full time, and takes a War Machine suit. Joins the West Coast Avengers as War Machine, and at some point we'll go into Rhodey's stuff, in a separate episode later.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Let's see, issue 300 against Ultimo debuts the modular armor. Again, I'm kind of skipping over some of this stuff because it's not a lot of the stuff story-wise here.
Like originally, the Iron Man stories were light and fluffy, and that's kind of what people kind of snickered at. Iron Man's going to be your first Avenger in the movie. These stories didn't have like large cult followings or resonance, aside from really Demon in the Bottle and occasionally Armor Wars.
Yeah,
you wouldn't hold this up and say this is why comics are art. That would change after the next arc because. Are you ready to talk about The Crossing?
We're going to talk about The Crossing, but real quick before I say it, I will say also, I think Armor War 1 is basically where people stop. But you're absolutely right. It's between that, and you had cool moments, you had cool suits, but you got to remember, this is also around the time that the buzzing of getting an Iron Man movie is coming out. Marvel's going to do what? With Iron Man? Seriously? At this point, like I said, we're skipping over a lot of this stuff because it's just like, you have, outside of the cool suits that are existing there, there's no real story that's interesting. It's kind of like tapers off when Denny O'Neil leaves or when you leave that first Armor War. Like, I feel like Armor War 2 is called that, and it's not like it's a bad story, but I feel like the name fucks it up because it's called Armor War 2 and you're expecting this. Like, Armor War 1 is literally Tony going around fighting other people with armor. It's very action-packed, right? Armor War 2 it's like, again, Tony's the target. Not really Iron Man, and so it's like it's a very weird thing, and you just get this tapering off, and then you get The Crossing, and I turn the floor over to Deepak.
I don't know how I became the here's things you're going to hate about this character person on the podcast. We'll talk more about that later. The Crossing is the single. No, because the next story's bad too. The Crossing is one of
I call this all
the worst.
This is all the same thing. As far as I'm concerned, this and the hero, all this is the same thing. So
it's a poop avalanche of bad storytelling, half thought out ideas, and things to make things very 90s KEWL. So the Avengers story arc, called The Crossing, reveals that Kang had been manipulating Tony Stark for years. He's been a sleeper agent for Kang. Writers, if you have a time-traveling villain, it's okay to use him as a surprise. It's not okay to use him to invalidate years of storytelling by saying, oh yeah, he's been in control for years. It was actually undone in the Avengers Forever limited series, which is one of my favorite series of all time, but we'll talk about that another time. So now, Tony Stark works for Kang. Kills the nanny of Crystal and Quicksilver, which when you're killing nannies, we know the event was put together very haphazardly. Killed a couple of Avengers as well, or Jimmy, the female Yellow Jacket, Rita Demara, and another ally of the Avengers. And the team, in their ability to say, stop Tony Stark, this is what they decided to do. I swear to God, this is a true story. They go back in time to recruit an alternate teenage Tony Stark to assist them.
You know what? I feel like we did this something similar to this when we did Aquaman. What was it? Arthur Curry Jr.? Arthur Joseph Curry is next.
Arthur Joseph Curry.
Yeah.
Except somehow they made less sense than this. And I was trying to be nice about it, but no. They gave us a reason why Tony Stark's here. They never explained Arthur Joseph Curry.
Valid point.
Yeah, and young Stark showing himself to old Stark shocks old Stark enough to kill Kang. And so now you've got teenage Iron Man. Because during the fight, this teen Stark is injured and has to build a goddamn suit to stay alive. Okay. Excuse me, I apologize. This is the nadir of storytelling with Iron Man. This is it, the low point. We literally killed off the main Iron Man and brought you a teen Tony. It's messier than a deal with the devil to erase a marriage. It just is. And it's more headache-inducing than Hawkeye's or Hawkman's origins, excuse me. But this is what happened. And you're saying to yourself, how did Marvel dig themselves out of this weird fucking hole anyway? The answer is they fucking didn't. They punted and killed every hero on the planet with Onslaught. Who's Onslaught? Well, one day, D-Palm's actually going to crank out a bunch of those X-Men mini podcasts and explain to you who Onslaught is. Fun fact, I like Onslaught as a concept and a character. I think a lot of cool things could have been done with him. I thought the character design was nuts. I am a 90s kid, so yes, I love Nate Gray. Sorry. But yeah, this character sucked. The way they treated it sucked. The way it ended sucked. And it ends with Onslaught evolving past a physical form. What, Reed? And saying that anyone could jump in there so that he could be absorbed into their flesh. What, again? Except the mutant, because then he would have the ability to live. Wait, what? Yeah, it's all weird. Scarlet Witch is protected by her hex, mostly because they wanted her in the Avengers for Heroes Reborn. And the end of the story comes with Nathan Richards, holding a ball. Franklin Richards, I don't mind a branch of that. Franklin Richards holding a ball that allegedly has this entire universe in there. And in that universe, it's when they brought back the image creators to write Iron Man, to create these characters again. So when you see the posters or the pictures of giant boobed Captain America, that's Heroes Reborn. That's why we're not going to cover it. Because it's fucking stupid.
The pocket universe.
Fuck that universe.
Here's the thing. I started going through this stuff. Sometimes I don't read in order, right? So my dumbass started reading Iron Man Volume 2. You guys like, oh, okay, cool. I started reading Volume 3, and I had read Volume 1, so I was like, oh, wait, let me go back and read Volume 2 because I'm missing something here. And I started reading this shit, and I was like, the fuck is going on here? Like, I
should have stayed missing.
I read the first issue, and it was like, why is Tony being an asshole to all these people? Why is Bruce Banner here? Do they not know Bruce is the Hulk? Like, what is going? Wait, are they about to do the Hulk origin story? What am I reading? What the fuck is this?
And you were reading Heroes Reborn.
I was reading Heroes. Because Heroes Reborn is Heroes Reborn is Iron Man Volume 2. I didn't know. It didn't say Heroes Reborn on it, I don't think. Maybe it does. It just didn't cross my mind. And I started reading it, and as soon as I realized what I was doing, I was like, oh, no, fuck this. Stop. No.
Those books should have an FDA warning on them. Like, They should be like, hey, before you open this, you know this is Heroes Reborn, right?
So, we're not covering that shit. This is basically where we end this podcast because
full stop.
We hate you guys. No, we love you guys.
Fucking fuse. Yeah. If you want a podcast that goes and reviews the Hero Reborn books, go find another show. This will.
We have.
I've said a lot on this show about things I will and won't do, and we've ended up recording most of them, including Grant Morrison. It was a horrible idea. I still have nightmares. I will never reread or review Heroes Reborn books. Like, that's honestly, this is one of those ones where Chris will do like a comic book club or a nostalgia review, and he won't even tell me it's happening.
A man has to have a code.
Oh, yours is very loose. Well,
I think you know what? This is one of those things that usually you're right. We're not doing this shit. I am not reading this shit. I started reading this, was like, oh, absolutely not. So we're ending here, guys, and we will come back. Basically, we pick up in the 2000s with Iron Man Volume 3, and
it's super interesting. I promise they do. They really write the shit out of Iron Man once they realize that he's the only one they have left in the stable for a movie.
Yeah, no. So, like, when we get into the 2000s, this is where you get the next evolution of Iron Man. This is where you get the Iron Man we know today. Like, it's an interesting thing. Like, going back and reading some of this early stuff before we kind of went off the rails here. Reading some of the early stuff, I love how the MCU mined some of the stuff, but use the 2000 sensibilities. Like, and
the thing we were talking about, how they take the MCU takes what's best, from the property they're taking it from,
and so
forward,
so you get that Iron Man 1 takes a lot of that origin, panel for panel, and some of that stuff there, but it uses this Tony Stark we start seeing in the late 2000s. It becomes more about Tony becoming more aware of, industrialism and all these other things like here. Like he becomes a problem. Don't get me wrong. He's still an asshole.
Tony becomes Secretary of State.
You said what now?
Tony becomes the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah. And it's
a whole ass problem.
Yeah. Like Tony goes through a lot of changes, but they're very super interesting, and we're gonna get into them in the next episode here. So, wow, this is way longer than I thought it was gonna be.
Way longer than I thought it was gonna be.
Right, way longer.
They always are.
Right, they always are. We are. But no, we love doing these. Hopefully in 2 weeks we'll be back. Hopefully before I'm aiming for before Endgame. We're gonna get the second part of this out because we want to have both of these episodes out before Endgame starts. Endgame comes out.
Otherwise, I'll cry through the second episode. Like I'm really nervous.
You say what now?
Otherwise, I might cry through the second episode because I'm really nervous.
Yeah. What Tony goes through a lot of shit in the second run, and it's all very super interesting, and it's a great read. So, all right, folks. Thank you guys very much for subscribing to the Character Corner. Tell your friends if you have somebody out there. Like I know we had Karen from the Black Guy Who Tips told us that her coworker came in and was complaining about how Captain Marvel was a dude, and they messed it up, and she kind of dropped the hints about you need to go and read these guys here, listen to these guys because they'll set you straight because you're all wrong. Not only did she tell them to listen to us, but that she was able to actually just correct them off GP. So hearing those kind of stories, we love hearing because we're here to help. We're here to help you correct those people out there that are just wrong as fuck. So, and we love doing this. So, folks, thank you guys very much for listening. It's a very late night for us, so we're both going to go pass out. And we'll be back soon. Make sure you subscribe to Character Corner. Again, you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, anywhere you get your favorite podcast. And we'll be back soon. Till next time, we're out of here. Peace.